Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Can we get a thread of paranormal or just very strange, unnerving childhood experiences? Please no copypasta or role-playing. I want to hear the dark, weird occurrences people usually keep to themselves.
9 years old. Mom worked late nights. I'd often be alone until late. Get a phone call after dark. Hello, is this my address? Yes. And who am I speaking to? Give him my name. Anon. My name is Sergeant Oliver. I'm with the police. Your mother has been in an automobile accident. She's fine, but we need you to come down to the hospital. I'm outside if you can meet me down here. Think it's a prank even though it's clearly an adult voice. Peek outside and sure as shit a man is out there wearing a tweed jacket and tie, standing by an old Pontiac. Now I'm not the sharpest knife in the crayon box, but this all seemed off. His appearance looked off, sort of scraggly and not as put together. The suit didn't even match. Why is he the first person I'd hear from if my mom was in an accident? Not my grandparents, her co-workers, my uncle. Panic sets in. This isn't right. I should get my grandpa. He used to be a Marine. He has a gun. I'm just saying it to scare him off and make it sound like there's another adult in the house. Anon, there isn't another car here though. He doesn't drive. I'll get him for you. Put the phone down and watch him. Swear for a second he looks right at my window and at me. He looks around and starts walking towards my house. Think about bolting out the back door. For some grace of God miracle, he has second thoughts. Almost hear him say, nah, this kid's ass isn't worth this much trouble. And he walks to his car, then casually drives away. Tell my mom, who tells the cops. Overhear one of them say, this is some next level shit to his partner. Some things to note. We don't live in the middle of nowhere or in the woods. We're in the quiet suburbs. Never caught the guy. No reports of this happening in my town or nearby towns. Whoever it was just picked me at random, then ghosted.
That is fucked up, Anon. It's a common scam. At least here in Chile. Some guy walks to your door. He asks some questions for some type of poll about trivial things. Some people say, yeah, why not? And then the stranger now knows about how many people live in the house, how many of the people work, how many children are at home, schedules, etc. They watch your home routine and then they plan everything. Bam! Kidnappedface.jpg. Scary stuff.
B3 or 4, late 80s. Be shopping with my aunt, Target or Kmart, looking at sheets or towels or something. Not paying much attention as kids do. Look up and realize aunt is gone. That panic of being a lost kid in a store slams into me. What do I do? Where do I go? I'm lost forever. In hindsight, she's probably just in the next aisle. Suddenly, the entire store goes black. Store seems to shrink into one dark room. Walls of monitors displaying flickering blue and white image static. Red, yellow, and white buttons blinking on chunky, dim consoles. Panic overload. I'm in a place I shouldn't be. As eyes adjust, I'm aware there's someone standing in the center of the room. Tall and thin, but can't make out more detail with the flickering monitors behind it. Doesn't speak. Doesn't move. But the heebie-jeebies tell me it's looking at me. Then a flash of white, and the store is back again. Eyes now have to adjust to the bright lights. Aunt is back too, unfazed, like nothing even happened. We finish shopping and we go home. The memory is still vivid even to this day. I haven't brought it up with my aunt, as it makes me physically ill when I recall the memory. And I'm no stranger to panic attacks, but what I experienced during those attacks are far different from that. So for now, I'm left wondering.
Had a similar event when I was browsing VHS tapes in the horror section of a video rental store. Every time I went there, I would read the synopsis on the backs of the VHS cases, but I was always too afraid to actually rent one. So one day, after examining a movie about an evil eyeball who slithered around on its nerve cord and devoured people through its iris, I found myself feeling unusually nervous about all the tapes I just examined. Went to find my mom. But although the store was only a single room with spaced shelves, I couldn't find her. Any sensible person would have just assumed she had left. So I tried to remain calm and returned to browsing movies. But after a while, I realized there was no one else in the store, not even the clerk. so I began to circle the aisles over and over and over again, but never passing in front of the reflective black window which lined the storefront, until eventually I found her, and we paid for our tapes and left. It happened one time.
I've told this story on /x/ before, but I think it's worth telling again. When I was a kid, not far from my house, there was an overpass where the road underneath ended just before it hit the railroad, and nearby there was a hill everyone called Scorpion Hill. It was supposed to be weird and haunted, a place you wouldn't want to go at night, even though odds are it was just a huge pile of dirt and rock from when they built the freeway. But during summer vacation, my cousin and I were riding our bikes on the hill, and we found a dead rattlesnake coiled neatly near the top of the hill. Not just dead, but totally gutted and empty inside. Sort of creepy, so we went back towards the houses. That night, way after midnight, I woke up and saw a figure holding some kind of torch outside of my window. Of course, I started screaming my head off. The figure ran off, my parents woke up and called the cops, and then discovered that someone had started a neat little fire in the middle of the backyard out of the brush and old wood we had stacked in a corner back there. And that is the end of the story. I had trouble sleeping for a while after, as one might expect, but nothing else happened. My cousin, who lived quite a bit further away, never had anything happen to him. We pretty much avoided going past the overpass after that, though.
Be me, about 7 or 8. My little sister, then about 6, was having vicious night terrors for a few months, screaming and crying in the middle of the night, occasionally sleepwalking, etc. One night, I woke up in the middle of the night. She's standing over my bed looking at me, mumbling nonsense. Really freaked out, so I got up and turned on the light and got ready to get my mom. When my mom and I come back, she hasn't moved, her eyes are bloodshot, and she isn't blinking and still mumbling nonsense words with the occasional no or some bullshit. My mom leads her back to her bed, and that's the end of that. Next night, my mom hears a noise in my sister's room. I was asleep and didn't hear it even though my room is closer. And she goes to check it out. My sister apparently sits up and stares at my mom for a solid 2 minutes, and when my mom tries to calm her down, she says, "It's time," before laying back down. Mom goes back to bed, and when she's on the verge of sleep, she swears she heard a male voice yelling her name and banging on her door. Mom is so freaked out she has someone sage the house. None of this shit ever happens again. Also, for a period of time, I saw people walking around my room, standing in the dark corners, etc., and developed a habit of burrowing into my covers completely so they wouldn't see me, which I still have. But the figures stopped when the house was saged.
Well, the following stories aren't as creepy as something you'd usually see on /x/. But then again, I believe 95% of this board is fake. I swear to you on my mother's life that the following happened. Story 1. Sitting alone at my computer. House empty. No pets, no family at the moment, no nothing. Windows and doors closed. My mother is a close-everything freak. I have a music stand because I play some instruments. It's just standing there, like a good stand should. Suddenly it shakes. A lot. Like something or someone is shaking it. Nobody there. .jpg. I open my window and begin yelling to my brother for help. He lives in another house across my backyard. Nothing happened, luckily. Story 2. Months or years later, I don't know. Going to sleep at night. My mother is in her room, also sleeping. I checked before and after what I'm about to tell you. Again, no pets ATM, everything closed, the usual. I sleep with my door closed. Suddenly, a loud noise at my door, like somebody came running towards it and stomped against it. I think it's my mom. Has something happened? I bolt out of my bed in a second, open the door. Nothing there, nothing at all. Just the empty hall. Mother, still sleeping, didn't hear a thing. Story 3. Not really a story, but here it goes. My house was built by my grandpa, who is now dead. My house has 2 floors. The second floor isn't built yet, it's basically an abandoned house. Gray walls and floor, a rudimentary ceiling, no lights. You get the idea. Very often I hear steps, like somebody running without shoes on. Have you ever run without shoes? You know what sound I'm referring to then. Like thump, thump, thump. It could be something else, though.
I had a stalker when I was a kid. There were 3 events when I was around 7 or 8 where he would be waiting for me around my neighborhood. He never had a gun or anything like that, or threatened me. But he would sort of play different roles, as if he could trick me into trusting him, which is all I needed to know to not trust him. First time I saw him, he was doing some janitor shit behind a library. But it was weird. He was basically washing the back wall of the library as if anyone cared that it was clean. It was sketchy, so I ran and stopped using that shortcut. Second time, I got chased by this massive dog and ran into him, dressed as a pastor, and I suspect it was his dog that he used to corral me to him. I recognized him, so I bailed, of course. Told my mom about it. She called the cops. They didn't find any evidence of the guy or his dog. Third time, he got work at my school as a substitute counselor since my regular one hadn't shown up the day before. He basically showed up for my session, and I took one look at him and ran screaming for help. By the time people checked, he was long gone. Fake name and everything, too.
Boy, here we go. My first ever memory is from a low perspective, perhaps not even a full meter above the ground, with a kind of bleak, blue and yellow colorization to it. I remember that I saw a kid sitting on a woman's legs, being fed by her. In the next moment, my perspective suddenly changed. I kind of woke up at that moment. I gained conscience, memories, the ability to talk. The colors I saw were different. I was being fed at that moment, sitting on my mother's legs. I looked around, confused, and saw our dog. It was standing right where I remember looking from a moment ago. I was probably around 3 years old at that moment, and I didn't know what to make of this memory until a few years later. I did, however, remember it well for some reason. I still don't know what to make of this, exactly. What I established in this post is stuff that I'm certain of. That is, the fact that I remember those things, and that they're my very first memories. Later on, my life has been getting more and more weird, when at some point the abnormalities went absolutely silent and never returned. I can tell you about the other things that happened to me, if there's any interest. The next thing that comes chronologically are my sleeping habits as a kid. Once my parents let me sleep on my own in my own bed, I've always slept on my back. For a few more years, until I was around 6, I didn't have any dreams at all. If I remembered anything from the night, it'd be the view of my ceiling. Only when I was around 14, while casually talking about dreaming with my parents, they told me that I used to sleep with my eyes wide open when I was little. The weird thing is that I wouldn't react to anything. They could talk in the room with the lights switched on, which they did, and I wouldn't wake up or move at all. This seems innocent enough, but it got worse beyond the age of 6. I finally started having dreams, but they were no ordinary dreams. They were nightmares of the worst kinds. My theory is that it's because I used to sleep on my back, which in correlation with further sleep-related events that I will describe later, would make sense. What used to happen after I woke up from the nightmares is that the hallucinogenic substance didn't fully subside yet, and I'd see these things in my room. Now comes the worst part. The moment I'd wake up from a nightmare, I'd hear this thumping, weird sound, like a monkey. At that age, I didn't know that what I was hearing was my own damn pulse. The only way to get rid of the scary sound was to get up from my bed. Not get out of it, but get up. Now my bed looked like pick related. I felt safe laying there, and not seeing the rest of my room that was filled with hallucinations. But I had to get up to get rid of the sound. I was screwed. For years. In the following years, my brain associated the thumping monkey sound with an actual monkey. What unintentionally came into being was some sort of a mythology in my head. The yelling gorilla finally got a physical form, and it was terrifying. He was the embodiment of all that I loved and was fascinated with, twisted into a nightmarish being. It was a gorilla. I was fascinated by monkeys back then, with a banana for its tail. Obvious Crash Bandicoot reference, which I got even back then. In a cape, riding on board of his spaceship. Fascination with astronomy. He was known as the Lord of Nightmares, who'd orchestrate all the lesser nightmares to haunt me, while taunting me with his pulsating monkey sounds as I woke up and had to choose between him and whatever the thing that caused me to wake up this night was. It came to the point where he actually got me on his spaceship, hence why I know how he and his stuff looked, and told me about how he'd screw me over. Around the age of 12, though, I turned the tables. I discovered lucid dreaming on the internet. It was a hot topic on one of the forums I frequented back then, so I engaged in discussions with my online and real friends. I ended up figuring it all out in a few days, and, knowing that I might wake up with a dream paralysis, risked lucid dreaming. I got a lucid dream on my first try, but whenever I'd remember the rule of, don't let your emotions overwhelm you, I'd get excited and wake up with a dream paralysis hallucination combo. I was scared, but I didn't panic. I quickly started moving my fingers and left the paralyzed state. At this point, I knew that all of this was fake, that it was just my subconscious. The gorilla had nothing on me anymore. I experimented with lucid dreaming even further and was very successful. Do keep in mind that I was just a kid back then, and my actions weren't entirely logical. I ended up accidentally hypnotizing myself, though, and screwing myself over. After getting bored of the orgies and other leisures that my newly acquired skills provided me with, I went to the gorilla's lair. What happened back then was something that I could never recreate again. My conscious self talking with my subconscious self, who, by the way, probably tricked me into screwing myself over. I asked the gorilla to defend me from the nightmares, or be banished from my mind forever. It surprisingly agreed to defend me. Then I woke up. His roars were gone. The hallucinations weren't there. It worked, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't sleep that night. I was too excited thinking about the things that I could do with lucid dreaming, and how powerful it actually was. The next day, when I did my thing, it didn't work, though. The nightmares were gone, but at the cost of lucid dreams. The only thing that remained was sleep paralysis, but they were empty. All I saw was the ceiling of my room. At the age of 14, after my parents told me about what I used to do while sleeping, I realized how ironic my fate was. I did a full circle. I remembered the gorilla taunting me and thought to myself, what a clever bastard. This was the end of what I call the dreaming era, and the beginning of the schizo era. This new era, which happened around the age of 12 to 15, was the most bizarre shit I have ever experienced in my life. Describing it would require me to probably write a book-long explanation of the things which lead up to it. What I can tell you in a shortcut is that in that period of my life, I created a tulpa, which I couldn't and still can't get rid of. And I created my own belief system, in which I was a god.
Be about 11. In bed trying to sleep, doze off for what seems no more than a minute or two. Clearly hearing my dad's footsteps enter his room and his door closes. He wore slippers. Only moments after I hear his bed creak with his weight, I hear a second set of footsteps. These I knew were boots. At first, I just thought it was my uncle. He lived with us at the time. They continue past my uncle's room, stop in front of my door. Fear starts to sink in. So of all the sounds I distinctly remember, I cannot recall noise from my door being opened. I do remember hearing the boots walk around the foot of my bed and up right next to me. I wait, for some reason, waiting for hands to grab me or to hear my uncle's voice, anything. This moment stretches until I can't handle it anymore. I start screaming, "Dad! Dad! Dad!" Over and over. I hear my uncle's door slam open, and he gets there a few seconds before my dad. Uncle flips the light on when he comes in. Of course, there is nothing there. Being a kid, I couldn't help but break down and cry for a bit. After I manage to spit the story out, my dad consoles me, and after a while I get to sleep. I bring it up soon after, and he digs a bit. Suggests maybe I heard him going into his room, and being sleepy, I mistook his steps for something else. I told him I heard his slippers, and I know how they sound different than boots. When he really thought about this, I could almost see him start thinking something else, but he would not go on. He knew I would know when he was in bed. I would turn on my TV after bedtime when I knew he was going to bed himself. He burned some sage, and other than some speculation years after, that was the end of it.
Mine isn't so scary, but it has to do with dreams and predictions of the future. I was probably about 10 or 12. My brother, grandma, grandpa, and I were going to go to my great-granddad's childhood home, a farm at the top of the mountain I live on. The night before, I dreamt about the farm. I saw the farm as a video portrait where the sky kept moving, but the image otherwise was standing still. Then I moved upwards on the road. That's when I saw a man in the barn to the left of the house. Then I looked closer and saw a toilet paper doll. Dolls with crocheted dresses to hide the extra toilet roll. Then I got flashes from the inside. I saw a tragedy. One baby killed, a teen dying by coughing so badly they started bleeding and fell over, and an old man that fell down the stairs. Then came the next day. We walked up the road to the house, first past the farm that still had people living in it. I used to ride their horses. All the way up it was quiet in the woods, not as much as a single sound. Then we went up the last little hill, entering the little curve, then entered the gate. It was only a gate, no fence around, a big field around the farm. I stopped for a second and the skies were moving fast. It was a nice, sunny day with a nice covering of clouds. We walked up to the storage house to the right of the farm and sat down. We ate our food Granny had packed up for us, then listened to my grandma talking about what her dad was like and what her memories of the farm were. Then suddenly, a woman stepped out of the house, an old woman dressed in a long brown wool dress. I was scared, as I didn't like the way the woman looked. She reminded me of a shadow in my dream. Then we were offered to go inside with her to have some snacks and drinks. The whole time the only thing I ate was potato chips. I didn't trust the woman at all. All I remember about the house is how the living room looks and the stairs up to the second floor. I usually went up there when I was on horseback because it's such a free area for me to ride. And I swear I've seen a woman just like that one standing in the windows. I don't go up there alone anymore. Last time I was up there smoking with my boyfriend. Yes, it was weed, but I was an avid user, and it was for nothing more than pain relief, so I was never high. And that time we heard a large bang in the barn and something that sounded like a bull or cow moving in there. And there's no way someone would put that up in the middle of nowhere. It is a cabin someone in my family still has. If someone wants coordinates to see it on Google Maps, just ask. It's not scary for you guys, but for me, it was scary. It's the two buildings, one more in real life, just two on the simple map. On the top of the road. They just removed most of the forest on the way up and have cut the grass on Google. It wasn't like that before. They recently used the area for supplies for close farms.
This happened when I was around 6 or 7 years old. I had a massive fear of storms. and I would basically scream and cry when storms were out in the distance or practically right above the house, resulting in me sleeping with my parents during a storm so I could get good sleep. Mum places me in my bed, and my twin in his bed a few feet away from me. I wake up in the middle of the night to extremely loud booms and bangs occurring every few seconds that would last for 5 or so seconds, and blinding white light that seemingly originated inside the house. I force myself out of my bed, stumble down the hallway crying and yelling out for help, trying to get into my parents' room. Everything goes pitch black, then the light reappears while the noises get louder. As I'm about to reach the doorway of my parents' room, I swear I saw a faint silhouette of a short figure, about my height, standing near the kitchen. I eventually fall into Mum and Dad's bed, and I sleep there. The next morning, my dad reassures me I was just seeing things, and that the noise and bright lights were just because of a storm. My dad checks the weather forecast on the family computer, and there were practically no storms recorded on the weather radar, and none of the news stations reported on that kind of weather ever occurring. My fear of storms has died down somewhat now, but I'm still afraid of them, and I still don't know what caused all of that shit. So far, nothing of that scale has happened since, and I really hope it doesn't happen in the future.
So this isn't actually a childhood story, but it's something that happened a couple of months ago. Backstory: live in an apartment with my boyfriend and cat. It's a nicer apartment development, right next to a wealthier-ish subdivision on the edge of town. Each apartment has their own entrance. It's more like condos that way. Okay, here's what happened. Sitting in the bedroom with my boyfriend watching TV or something. Hear 2 urgent doorbell rings. I tell him, "Hey, who's that? It's strange to have visitors at all." He says, "I don't know, I'll see." Being a 6'5" guy, he's the one who answers the door. Before he can walk the 20 feet into the next room to answer the door, it rings again. Steps outside briefly, I can hear faint conversation. Kat jumps in front window to see who it is. She loves company. BF comes back in and goes into the kitchen to look for something. Me. Who is it? I had seen that it was some guy in his 20s with a hoodie and jeans on. Boyfriend? I don't know. They want to see our electric bill. Me. Well, don't fucking give it to them. I basically tell him it's a scam or something, and super weird to ask for that. Boyfriend goes out there and tells the guy that he wouldn't be able to find an electric bill without searching. Guy. Are you sure? Even last month's is fine. Boyfriend. Sorry. So we turned the guy away. My boyfriend then comes in and tells me that he doesn't understand why that was bad, that it probably wasn't a scam. He grew up in the country and I'm from the city, so I know that it's strange for that to happen. My boyfriend also tells me that he had asked when he saw our large cat. Do you guys have a cat or the dog? Oh, a cat? Well, that's a big one. And from looking outside, it seemed as if there were a few of these guys going around asking these questions. They all had the same clipboard. One of them was in scrubs.
It seems to me that somebody with a higher bill would probably be home more often. Also, a lot of bills these days have charts of electricity usage, letting you know what part of the day you use the most. This could help them decide which apartments to break into and when.
Rather not paranormal, but just a strange thing I experienced as a kid and never really told anyone about this. When I was very young, around preschool age, I used to experience it. I don't really know what to call it. I think hallucinations would be the best term almost every night. Basically, a moment after turning off the lights, things in my room were starting to come alive, transforming into various bizarre creatures and moving. Other strange, or less strange, beings and objects appearing out of nowhere and flying, moving, or just laying around the whole room. Sometimes talking, even conversing with me, often reacting to my actions. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm 100% sure I wasn't asleep when it was happening, since I often just walked around the room, and things were instantly returning to normal disappearing when I touched them. But other hallucinations remained. Even then, at this age, I did realize that those things weren't actually real, even though they often felt real. It kept happening for quite a long time, not sure how long, but probably at least a year. and then stopped. I also experienced this outside on a few occasions, always during the night. Parents thought I was going crazy because I kept seeing things that apparently weren't there and talking and shouting to myself at night. Probably they were kind of right. Does anyone here had similar experiences? Is there any psychological syndrome or something explaining this? Or maybe all kids experience stuff like that and I'm just a moron who never heard about it.
When I was very young, I often used to hallucinate floating eyes. I have a vivid memory of lying in bed one night as a kid and seeing an eye floating towards me, which reached me just as I fell asleep. These hallucinations usually happened when I was ill, but that time I swear I wasn't ill at all. Maybe yours is a similar case.
Kind of, yes. I in general remember a lot of things floating and flying in the air in my hallucinations, often random objects.
I wanted to say that you were a sleepwalker, but once you mentioned experiencing this outside, this obviously stopped being a possibility. The fact that you understood that these things weren't real probably rules out schizophrenia as well, which only leaves some sort of an obscure disorder as the answer.
This isn't scary, it's just sort of a mystery. When I was 9, my mom and dad bought a house in the country. It was great. There was an old barn to play in and a bunch of old beer bottles in a burn pile from the previous owners that I could shoot with my BB gun. A pond near the front of the property that I could fish in. But none of that stuff was weird. It was just awesome. It was the basement, which was carpeted and really comfortable, that freaked me and my little brother out. I still don't understand it, but we always saw this black cat. It was like it followed us, and when we looked at it, it would bolt. It was always just in our peripheral vision. We just brushed it off as our brains playing tricks on us. But it felt sinister. We had a cat. His name was Toe Jam, TJ for short. But he was a light gray color. This apparition cat was so black it almost seemed like it swallowed light, like a black hole. One day my brother and I were playing on our GameCube in the basement when we finally got a good look at this cat. Our game was going crazy, and the TV was just a little fuzzy from some static, and we saw it. It was just staring at us. We don't understand why, but we were scared stiff. This thing just sat so motionless. It didn't look like it was breathing, and it almost looked plastic. TJ happened to be in my lap as well, so I could confirm that this cat was not ours. TJ hissed and ran after it, and the cat disappeared along with TJ. We later found TJ very sick, and he had died. It broke our hearts. He was an awesome cat. About a month later, my parents put the house up for sale. It seemed sudden. My little brother said he heard clawing at his door, but the cat had disappeared for me, save a few times. My brother saw it a lot. We moved, and we never saw it again. But I'm still puzzled.
I don't remember this. I was too young. My mother told me the story, so this is from her perspective. It's late in the evening. Divorced with the father, the kid spends this week at my place. 3 or 4-year-old son, me, is well asleep. His older brother is at a friend's over the night, basically alone. Sit watching TV for a while. Walk to the kitchen through the hall, who cares? Get back from the kitchen through the hall. The corner is wet, like drenched. Was in the kitchen for literally 10 seconds. Get something to clean it up real quick. Why the F is it wet in that corner? Whatever. Keep going about the night. Fall asleep on the couch for literally 1 minute. Stand up and see the same corner in the hall is drenched again. What the hell is going on? Clean up again. What else am I supposed to do? Make sure there is nothing weird leak or something that would splash a bucket full of water in that corner in 1 minute. Goes to check on the kid, opens the door. Sleeping all quiet, not moved an inch all night. Decides to not think about it. Sits down again. Just a little bit weirded out. Kid shrieks like nothing. What the hell did I let in my kid's room? Rushes to the kid's room. Door is locked. No key. Kid is screaming. Panic. Break the lock open to the door with a hardcover book and open it. Kid is standing banging his head on the windowsill and screaming. Heavy mattress with a metal frame leaned up against the wall. Kid is 3, can't lift that shit. Grab the kid, take him out of the room. Sit down, try to calm him down. Corner in the hall is wet again, don't care. Kid calms down, try to get the guy to explain what's going on. Can barely understand what he's saying. Has a little autistic stutter. Says I was in the room, I wasn't. Says I was talking to him all night, I didn't. Says he was scared. Duh. He wants to sleep in my bed instead, of course he is. Watch over him for the rest of the night.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.